Good day, good people. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with me, and I appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in. I know it's been a while. I'm sorry for that. Things kind of got a bit crazy this year, as you maybe have seen. If you haven't seen, I'm slightly worried for you. Are you okay? Are you good? Do I need to come? Do I need to come for you? No? Cool. Well, I know it's been a while, but I wanted to come back and basically talk to you about some of the stuff that's happened with Adobe and Photoshop and Lightroom and stuff. And well, maybe more so the Lightroom stuff. We'll focus on the Photoshop in maybe another video, but definitely going to do some of the Lightroom stuff in this video. And yeah, welcome to color grading and the new updates on Lightroom for 2020. I'm back. So for those of you who don't know me, I go by Tobishinobi, and we're going to look at some of the updates to the Lightroom color grading tool. This tool is really an update to the split toning tool, which some of you may have used in the past, but now it's been refined in a way where you can really add and dial in a signature look. So what we have here is an image that was shot in Greenwich, and I'm going to add some split toning to this. And let's do some very quick basic edits. It's a split toning tool there as we scroll past. And for those of you who follow me, you know I like to kind of start from the bottom and work the way up. Don't need to do anything calibration. Don't need to do anything in the effects panel just yet. Transform, yes, let's do some guided transform. I'm going to take, let's take a point that we know should be straight and level this. So let's take the inside corner of this window and level it with the inside corner of this window. CC, it's going to make a difference, so just get that really tight in there. And then we're going to go with this corner, which is kind of hard to see, but should be able to zoom in, and go across to this corner down here, and just straighten out this image a little bit. Okay, that looks better already. So off, on, just straightens it, makes it look a little bit better. I'm happy with that. Okay, cool. So we don't need that anymore. Let's keep going up. Built-in lens profile is already applied. Let's click on remove chromatic aberration. Get rid of that. Noise reduction, yes please. I'm going to take that to 20. Let's do some sharpening. So let's hit option, take that to the right hand side. We'll go to 100 just now. There's a lot of detail in this image, so let's see how this kind of pans out. Take the radius down a touch. Again, I'm hitting option. That's why it's going to that kind of low pass look, the grayed out background with the white outlines. Detail, I tend to leave on 40. And then masking, one of my favorite parts of editing. Hit option and keep coming to the right until we find something that makes sense. Now again, there's a lot of detail in this image, and it's about your flavor, your taste, working out where exactly makes sense for you. So I think 60 feels about right. If we go less, start to lose some of the detail in those areas. Well, 50 looks decent actually. And we can come back and adjust this later. Let's see what that looks like. All right, cool. Difficult to see when it's this dark, but we're gonna work our way towards it. We're going to come up with a good image at the end. So, color grading. As I said before, this is an evolution of the split toning tool that was in Adobe Lightroom before, and it will be very familiar for people who've used another piece of software that shall remain nameless, or Premiere Pro. So if you've used Lumetri color panels, you'll be familiar with the shadows, midtones, and highlights, and it just gives you a little bit more flexibility to kind of manipulate the colors and stuff. One thing that's key to remember with this tool is, although it does use the terms hue, saturation, and luminance, it doesn't quite work in the same way as a hue, saturation, and luminance filters. Those sliders affect the color specifically, whereas these in the color grading actually are additive color, so it will add color to the shadows, it will add color to the midtones, and add color to the highlights. So you technically can use the HSL sliders and tools in addition to the color grading tools to get a very unique look and you know I'm all about that really sophisticated, really unique look in trying to dial in your own personal style. So on the color grading tool, you start off with the shadows, midtones, and highlights as represented by these circles here. And as you see, you can click around and get different effects in each of the individual components. So right here, we are focusing on shadow. This is the shadow tool right here. And by clicking in the circle or wherever you've selected, and by clicking on a particular color, you can choose the color as you want it. Obviously, this is way overpowered, so you can dial that down by hitting Option, and that will give you less flexibility when moving. Come off Option, you see it's kind of wild and free. Option again, we kind of slow it down. By clicking in the circle, oops, let's click back out here again. By clicking in the circle and going left or right, you'll see that you're locked into a particular hue, and you can change the saturation. By clicking Command, you are locked into a saturation level, and you can click a different hue. So just mess around with the modifier keys, and you can really find the ways to kind of control what you want to do. So let's put that back in the center, and let's start off with the shadows by adding a blue tone. So let's add some blue to the shadows, and then I'm going to hit Shift, and that's going to lock my color in, or the hue, and then I can dial in just how much I want. So let's go to 35 for the purposes of this tutorial, and then I think I want to adjust the hue a touch. So let's go Command, and that will lock in the saturation level at 35, and I can just adjust this to where I want by holding that down. So 225, 35 in the shadows, and then what I would do is hit this eye button here, or the eye icon, and that will show you before and after, before and after. So you can already see it's making a difference. What we can also do is hit this slider here, which deals with the luminance and tells you how bright that should be. Now this kind of works like the tone curve, so it will lift the shadows as well as the color. So you'll see it's bringing the shadows up. So it's quite powerful. I would use this sparingly, because it will obviously affect the overall image rather than just the color itself. So what I would like to do is probably not do too much to the shadows, because they are shadows and I want to retain the character in the shadows. So I'm going to leave that on 10 for now, and then I'm going to come across to the highlights, and I'm going to bring some color into the highlights by taking this into the gold area. Let's make this even easier to see by clicking on the highlights circle itself, and obviously by clicking on this one here, it switches to the midtones. Click on this one here, takes us to the shadows, but we are focused right now on the highlights, and I want to add a little bit of gold, maybe amber tones to those highlights. So let's hit Command and really pick our hue. So let's go with 40, and then let's hit Shift to increase the saturation. And if you look around this area here, you can see what a difference it's making. So adding a bit of gold to the highlights does help, but if you go too far on it, you'll find that you're affecting these areas here and here, because they obviously are part of the highlight range. And I don't really want to do that. That is kind of a blue tone, just kind of keeping it realistic based on what I saw in the day. And so let's bear that in mind, that we don't want to kind of overdo any of these tools when making this work. So we have that, and then if we click on here, you can see before and after, before and after, and it really allows for color contrast. Contrast obviously being, when you add more contrast to an image, you make the brights brighter and the darks darker, but color contrast is where you take two colors and really put them in opposition to one another. So gold in the highlights, blue in the shadows will really help for color contrast, especially when you have lighting conditions such as these. All right, so that kind of covers a lot of what color grading is, but let's finesse this image. Let's see what else we can do to really bring that out. So let's do some stuff in the tone curve. Let's use this. Okay, so that's given it a bit of more filmic look. We've added some fade by lifting up the bottom of the tone curve just to give it that fade there. I'll show you what that looks like. Just a little bit of fade, and we haven't even got to any of the regular sliders just yet. So we haven't messed around with the treatment of it. Let's do some of that now by affecting the tone and the presence. So I already know that I want some clarity in this image, so I'm going to lift this to 25. Dehaze. Let's focus on texture first, because I do like messing around with the combination of texture and clarity to really dial in very specific looks. So let's add a little bit of texture, and let's add some vibrance to the image. And remember, with vibrance, it's more of a, I guess, a smart type of saturation. So saturation takes the image as a whole and applies color to every single pixel, whereas vibrance looks at the images which are low in saturation and adds color in those areas specifically. I tend to use that more because I don't want to overpower the image by just adding too much to every single bit. So vibrance, and also I should say, sometimes there may be situations where I will take saturation down and then bring the vibrance back up. So like I said, really dial in or find your niche, find your special recipe which makes your images work. So we've got that. Now the black level is quite dark here, so I'm going to lift that up a touch. Let's go to 50, but it's really the shadows where I think a lot of the detail is going to come back, and as I come across to 85, you can see the image is really opening up there. Let's add a bit more contrast. That takes it down a touch, and we're going to add some overall exposure. And then let's have a look. This is what we had before, and that's what we had after. So there you can see what a real big difference the split toning can make. But there's more that can be done to this image. There's always more we can do to edit an image, but I think this is in a good spot, and I think we're going to leave it there. We will talk about some more uses of color grading at some other point. I wanted to show you this one thing actually. I had taken this image, and this might be helpful in kind of just showing you how color grading works, and you might find it helpful. A little bit of a bonus, but I wanted to do it in the middle of the video, but just didn't get a chance to, but we will do it now. All right, so I just downloaded this off the internet. So it's like a step gradient. You can find it anywhere, just a straight JPEG. And we have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So highlights, or whites even, blacks. Then this would be shadows. These two would be kind of the midtones, and this would be the highlights. That's my understanding of it. Not too technical with it, but you'll see what I mean when I do some of the edits now. So what I'm going to do is add some color to the shadows. So let's do that here. We will hit Command and come around, and I think let's do 230, and you'll see the black retains its blackness, but this is very heavily affected in the shadows, right? And you see it's kind of leaning or bleeding across here. I'm going to turn this off, turn it back on again, turn it off, turn it on again, and you'll see, even if you look at this section here, right in the middle, if I turn it off, it is being affected by the blue. Now, blending and balance will affect those somewhat. So if I take the blending, right now it's set to 50, if I take the blending over to the right, you'll see that the effect of the blue shadows now bleeds across way more to the highlights. It still doesn't affect the whitest whites, and the blacks still don't seem to be affected as of right now. But if I take the luminance up, you'll see the blacks are somewhat affected. But double click on that to reset it, you'll see blending really kind of makes it so that whatever you start on, whether it's shadows, midtones, or highlights, when you blend, it's going to start to bleed across And just to show you a little bit more of that, let's get the yellow. We'll click here, and saturation is quite high up there. And let's see, let's take the blending. So you see this middle area, the gray is kind of like this kind of almost green here. And then the balance will determine where this kind of midpoint is between the two of them. So if I move this to the right, moving it towards the highlights, you see the highlights have more dominance now. So there's more yellow in the image, and there's some yellow bleeding into this kind of shadowy blue here. If I go the other way and lean the balance more in favor of the cooler tones, you'll see it comes across here, leaving us with a kind of greeny, yellowy highlight area. Again, the white not being affected too much and the black not being affected too much. If I lift the luminance, you see it's there. Double click that to reset that. Again, with the luminance. Well, if I bring down the luminance even, you can see that the white is now being affected. I'm going to double click that to change that. Double click that to reset that. And then the last thing I should show you is I'm going to go to the shadow, and we have this box here, kind of a color picker. So if we click on this, we get a bunch of color presets, and we can click on any of these to kind of really set wherever the shadows are. We can even set it to white. But the thing I like about this is I can take the eyedropper tool, I click and hold, and I can take that to pretty much anywhere in the image and just find the color. So if I click on this magenta here, you'll see that it's that. If I click on the blue, you'll see that it's that. So just another thing I wanted to kind of just let you know that this tool is really, really powerful and really easy to tweak. Have fun, play around with it. Now I'm going to get back to the main video. I've got some exciting things coming up, so make sure you hit notifications so you're first to be informed when those things come up. But I really want to hear from you guys. Please let me know the kind of things you'd like me to talk about, the kind of things you'd like to see me do tutorials on. I am currently in London. This lovely apartment that Vonda Shoreditch helped me out with is fortunately not where I live. But I'll be back in Chicago soon, self-isolating, so expect a fair few more videos to come through. It's looking like we're gonna head into a second lockdown. So, you know, let's get cozy. Let's find out what this is all about. But I'm gonna do my best to come back. It's been a crazy year. And yeah, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you. Again, for those of you who don't know me, Tobishinobi. Check me out on Instagram. If you found anything useful in this video, please like, share, subscribe, send it to your friends, send it to your mom, send it to everyone. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Until next time. For those of you who don't know me, I go by Toby. Should also say, if you have any questions, please do DM me. I answer every DM, unless of course you're being belligerent. And then, yeah, no one should give you any time if you do that.